G'day, Brodie.
Hey dude, how's it going?
Good, mate. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. Not too bad.
Day's ticking along well.
Yeah, managed to get a run in before it gets too hot, and then doing a whole bunch of podcast stuff today.
Cool. Where are you based?
I am in Melbourne.
Melbourne, yeah. How'd you go on the 5-day lockdown?
I was okay. 5 days isn't too long.
Yeah, no.
And when you work from home, not a lot changes.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's good.
You're up in Queensland or something?
Yeah. I moved up here in midway through November. So
yep.
Months up here now, which has been good. It's been
nice.
But you get that.
How's the summit preparations going?
Yeah, it's good. We've had about 12 or 13 speakers now.
Cool.
Yeah, so we've got Mona, Nita Willis, Steve Monaghan, Lee Troop. A few other ones now, which is good.
Sick.
Sonia Sullivan. Ticking along. So thanks for jumping on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's what I do. It's what gives me a lot of energy. So happy to jump on.
Yeah, sweet. To start things off, do you want to just give about a bit of an intro about yourself?
Sure.
Your pathway into running and where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Brodie. I'm from Melbourne. I'm a physiotherapist, and I have started my own online physio business treating runners. And pretty much all started off with about 2 or 3 years into my physio career, I became a runner myself. I went from playing years and years of basketball to giving that up, and my sister wanted me to help her train for a half marathon. So I'd never done recreational running before, so decided to give it a try. Caught the bug quickly, and then realized once I had this passion for recreational running, when I started seeing runners in my clinic, I would instantly notice like I'd have a heightened passion for wanting to get them back to pain-free running. I wanted to talk about what races they had, what running shoes they had, what cadence they had. And yeah, they'd walk out of the room, I'd just be buzzing, and it would bring out my better self, like with the way I would conduct myself, clinically trying to do everything right, just to try and help these runners as best I could. And noticed that when I was educating them, there was a lot of common topics, a lot of common misconceptions that I noticed, especially once I started delving into, say, running Facebook groups or online questions that people have. There was a lot of running misconceptions, and decided to create a bit of an avenue to educate runners, educate them on the science, educate them on how to reduce their risk of injury, how to increase their running performance, and just use a science-based background and just break it down into really simple concepts. And so the Run Smarter podcast was born, and it's been going strong ever since.
Cool. Awesome. When did you make that transition to get into the running side of things with the recreational running? Like, how long have you been doing that for?
So it's probably since 2014, 2015. So about 6 or 7 years of me plotting along, building up from half marathons, and trail running, triathlons as well. So not trying to push myself too hard, but just loving staying active and the variety that it offers.
The whole scene with treating runners as well. So yeah, cool. I know one of the things you mentioned there was the misconceptions. I know we touched base earlier, and you said that a few misconceptions and myths out there. One of them was, I wrote it down. Pain means my injury hasn't healed yet. Was that it? Yeah. Can you dive into that one? Because I was like, it just, I don't know. Like, if that's
allow me to clarify.
Yeah.
So a lot of people we're talking about pain science, the topic of pain science, and what pain actually means. And there's a multitude of factors, a multitude of environmental factors that influence how we experience pain. And yes, it is a warning sign. It is it could potentially mean that there is damage somewhere. And yes, if there is damage somewhere, there might be pain, but there also might not be pain. And it's once we understand the concept and the relationship between the pain and how the brain kind of influences output, is when it starts to make sense. Because we do know that people can be injured or have a life-threatening condition and not be in pain because the brain doesn't know about it, or it doesn't perceive it as a threat, or it doesn't prioritize it because we need to survive. Like, for an example, if we're running away from a tiger and we break our leg, we're not really going to notice the broken leg until we've got away from that danger. The brain will be like, I know I'm getting input from the nerves saying that I have a broken leg, but I'm not going to elicit any pain yet until we're away from danger. And there's tons of examples that are happening. So there can be damage, threatening damage with no pain, but there can also be pain without any damage because the brain might perceive it to be a threat. It's still the same scenario. And a lot of time, if say someone has plantar fasciitis, and there is an overload in the early days in this acute pain, there might be something structurally going on, and the pain messages might be well received and well organized within the brain. But then over time, you start to build a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts attached to that injury, a lot of worry, and the brain starts to really manifest something and say, we really need to pay attention to this particular issue. We need to pay attention to this area of the body because it's causing us a lot of distress, a lot of loss in function. So as that goes over time and the pain starts to become a little bit more chronic, we can no longer trust the pain signals. And we do know that over time, if there's a rich blood supply to a certain area, in most cases, tissues will heal in 6 to 8 weeks. At the most, probably 2 to 3 months. But we definitely know that pain persists well beyond that with people with plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendinopathies and you name it. And we do scans and there seems to be nothing wrong. Back pain is another perfect example of people who have years and years of low back pain, and then you scan them and there's not a lot of findings to suggest or have a relationship to the intensity of pain that they're experiencing compared to the amount of damage or structurally the structure that we see on scans. And that's when we need to, I guess, work out how much of the relationship between chronic pain, the relevance between the pain signals that they receive and how much threat there actually is. We need to start calming people down and just educating them on how to best manage their circumstances and change their relationship with pain. And then you find they get a lot better.
Yep. That's really interesting. When you went through that and you were talking about the kind of correspondence between the pain and then where your mindset was at, I've had that experience, and then I've had like checks and scans and like I wasn't injured, like it's healed. So that's really interesting that you say that, because I just got flashbacks and like, yeah, it makes sense.
Most people can draw some sort of experiences, and anytime I encounter some pain, I can draw some really funny anecdotes that's happened to me where either I forgot that I injured something and the pain just isn't there. It's only once I remember it that the pain comes on. I know a couple of months ago, my girlfriend, she has a bad shoulder and slept on her shoulder funny, woke up in the middle of the night in excruciating pain, but managed to find a comfortable position, fall back asleep. Then when she woke up the next day, totally forgot that she actually had that pain. The brain just totally forgot. And it wasn't until after work later on that day that she remembered that she woke up with extreme pain. And then her shoulder started to hurt. She had the whole entire day without any pain until she remembered that happened. And that's how we need to know, or makes total sense based on what we know about science now, that it's all from the brain. If you don't have a brain, you don't have pain.
Yeah. And is this diving into a lot of psychosomatics? Have you heard of psychosomatics?
Yeah, and it's like the involvement of the complex nature of pain. And we know that it's involved with a whole bunch of different influences. It's not just the level of damage, because we know that the level of severity with your injury doesn't reflect your pain. It doesn't reflect the amplitude or the severity of the pain that you experience. There's so many different factors that are involved, and one of them being your thoughts, the context, the past experiences, emotions that you attribute to that. And so that's where this psychosomatic involvement can come in and play a real influence.
No, it's super interesting. Thanks for your input on that. There was another one I wrote down that was one of your myths that you want to bust. Stretching helps lower risk of injury and increases performance/recovery.
Yeah, myth.
Please dive in.
Yeah, let's please do, because it is what gets me a little bit revved up about this is when I see runners who believe that they do get injured because they don't stretch enough. And I can delve into the science and tell you that the science shows that static stretching, any particular type of stretching, doesn't do anything to reduce your risk of injury. It doesn't do anything to increase your performance. I'm mainly talking about a recreational runner. If you are a gymnast or a dancer or someone who's working at really end of range, then you'll need to prepare the body in other ways, and maybe stretches will help. But recreational runner, you don't need to do stretches unless it feels good for you, because we know based on science, it doesn't do anything to reduce your risk of injury. We know it doesn't do anything to increase your performance or prepare you for what you're about to do. And we know that based on, say, delayed onset muscle soreness, it doesn't do anything to reduce your soreness after doing a run or after doing a workout. Stretching might feel good in the moment, but won't do anything to reduce that recovery. And I don't say don't stretch. I do recommend it if it feels good for the individual. But like I said, what gets me really revved up is those who are constantly injured and they think it's because they're not stretching, where in fact it might be something completely different. It might be their training intensities, like their training structure, or they might be having some training errors that we haven't identified yet, but they're completely ignoring that the actual real factors that might lead to an injury, because they think that it's not stretching that's leading to those injuries. And they, like, a lot of runners don't want to stretch, and they're happy. Well, they know once they're injured that if they believe it's because they're not stretching, they're still not going to stretch anyway. But it's identifying the real factors and what the evidence shows does cause running injuries, which they need to identify and they need to be aware of if they want to survive and thrive as a runner.
So from my understanding, with all because I was pretty competitive in Aussie rules, and I was going through a few programs, and like stretching and recovery was pretty big. Like when you say the science and whatnot, like what is it? Could you touch on a bit of the science just to give the viewers and myself a bit of an understanding?
Yeah, and I can't talk about sports because I mainly just look at the research when it comes to runners.
Yeah, of course.
But they have large studies where they get groups of people, they get a whole group of people to run at the same degree. They have the same baseline characteristics. They get half of them to stretch, they get half of them to not stretch, and then just observe over time and see what happens to them, what their risk of injury is like, what their occurrence of injuries are like. And there's just no correlation, because if we know anything about running injuries, it's due to overload. Running is a repetitive activity, and we know that it increases your likelihood of injury if you do too much too soon, or if you have like an abrupt change in your training. That be speed, that be like you're changing the types of shoes that you wear, the terrain that you run on, anything that's a real abrupt change that's exceeded your ability to adapt, then it's going to break down rather than build up. And stretching just doesn't do anything in that equation, overtraining, training errors equation doesn't do anything for that. Similar to performance, there's been some work around even the lower distances, like around the 5K, 3 to 5K distances. They get two groups, or they even get the same group. 1 week they'll stretch before a run. The next week they'll do total opposite, and then they see how they go performance wise. And actually shows that if they do a little bit of a dynamic warm up and not a lot of static stretching, they actually perform better. It seems like they have a better start and they finish off around about the same performance wise. So it just doesn't do much for performance either. But if we're looking at an elite athlete, if we're looking at someone who's training several times a week and doesn't have a lot of downtime, sometimes those stretches, those recovery sessions, those ice baths, the foam rolling, massage balls, it might not do much physically. Well, the ice baths will, but the foam rolling, massage, and stretching might not do a lot physically, but it actually does a lot mentally. And we need to appreciate downtime and switching the body from this sympathetic nervous system, like highly driven, highly stressful workout, build up your tolerance type of state that the body will be in, and switch it to a parasympathetic, let's rest, digest, rejuvenate, which stretching, foam rolling can definitely do, which has real benefits on recovery and does have real benefits on reducing injury. But if you are already getting some good sleep, if you're already having enough recovery outside of your training sessions, but you think that stretching will do much, it probably won't.
Yeah. So then it kind of goes back to that kind of mind-body interconnection. Is that with the...
Yeah, we really need to respect the equation. With all athletes, you get injured because you either overtrain or you under recover, and somewhere around the two. So you can train at the same amount, at the same dosage, the same intensity one week, but be injured the other week because in that other week you haven't recovered the same way that you did. You might not be sleeping as well as you did. You might not have the same quality nutrition. You might not have that same downtime. You might be quite wound up. Like let's just say people outside of their athletic endeavors get a job promotion or have a kid, or some life circumstances that lead to more stress, less sleep, and that's they could theoretically get an overtraining issue because they're under recovering, and something we really need to pay attention to.
For the I just want to quickly touch on for the viewers. I worked with Brodie, it was a couple of months back now, and we came up with this. It's called Injury Prevention Secrets. So I might be able to tee that up so the viewers can get access to that. That dives into the overtraining phase and the adaptive phase, and why people kind of get injured, and a few tips and tricks to keep yourself from getting injured. So might make that available for everyone, which would be good. I've got another question for you. So from your experience and all of your exposure in the running scene and all the physiotherapy treatments you've done, what's one of the things that runners should focus on in order to grow as a runner? Like, I'm not sure if you want to connect this with what we've spoken about previously, or if you have something else in mind, but just thought I'd ask the question. It's right out there.
Yeah, would grow as a runner mean to increase their performance?
Yeah. Let's go. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just say they're running 10Ks and they want to slowly build up to a half marathon. They want to slowly build up to a marathon after that and continue with their endeavors. There's a few things you need to be aware of. One is like what you discussed that we shared before with those graphs around your adaptation zone, like really respecting where your adaptation zone currently is and have a plan to slowly build up from there. Like, have structure, have some sort of plan. We know that the more conservative you are with your building up your training, the less likely you are to get injured, but it does need to have some sort of structure. And any sort of spike in training will just lead to an increased risk. You might not break down. You might be that type of runner that just throws anything at them and they just don't break down, because there are runners out there that are that type, but it is increasing your risk. So it might increase your risk from 2% to 12%. But like we said before, it's all about training errors and making sure our training structure isn't too abrupt. We're not throwing something at our body that it's not used to, and it's way too big of a volume or way too intense that we're not used to, and then we start breaking down. And if you want to be a runner, if you wanted to build up as a runner and grow, understanding that concept will get you 80% of the way there. The other 20% is understanding like the mechanics, understanding like what type of shoes that people like, how a different type of shoe will influence your body, what different terrain will do to increase the tolerance on the body. And a concept that I like to talk about a lot is you want to become a resilient runner. You also want to be a a type of runner that can cop a whole bunch of different scenarios, a whole bunch of different factors that it might not be used to in the past. And so that incorporates like doing some sort of cross training, do some sort of strength work, make sure that your running is quite consistent. But as you build up your tolerance and as you build up your adaptation phase to different environments, different shoes, different terrains, different exercises, you're slowly building up and becoming more resilient. And that will definitely create a bigger buffer so that you don't break down. And one of like a scenario that I can think of, if someone wants to train for a marathon and all they're doing is road running, all they're doing is wearing the same type of shoes, all they're doing is focusing on staying the same pace, that same low intensity marathon pace the whole entire time, they'll adapt and they'll get quite good at a marathon. But as soon as you do something slightly different, it will increase their risk of injury. Whereas if someone is, let's say they're 6 months out for a marathon, if they're doing trail runs, if they're doing strength training twice a week, if they're cycling once a week, and then doing their running at different speeds, and then running into different shoes, then they will adapt and become a more resilient runner. Then when it gets closer to their marathon race, that's when they start becoming more specific and removing some strength sessions, removing that cycling session, and slowly adapting more to what they need to prepare their body for, slowly getting closer to that marathon distance, slowly getting closer to training at that particular time of the day, including those foods that you might want to race with, and just becoming a lot more specific at that top end. And you'll be a more resilient runner that way.
Cool. Awesome. So variety kind of turns into growing the runner as a resilient runner.
Yeah, the more variety you want to throw out, sometimes it's hard to do. Like people are busy, they've got full-time work, but the more you want to throw at your body, the more resilient you'll get. Keep that in mind. We don't want to stay on this really narrow path and then you're walking on this tightrope, and every time that you deviate, you're going to fall off the tightrope. We want to have a nice wide base.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thanks for all that. Really appreciate it. That's pretty much all I've got for today. Is there any last few tips or tricks that you want to throw in to give some value to the viewers, or pretty much wrapped it all up?
If someone, like I discussed before, like if you want to go from say a marathon to an ultra and you just want to keep building up, I'd say the more mileage that you put in, the more you need to prioritize recovery. It needs to be higher and higher on the priority list, the more mileage that you decide to build up, or the more, let's just say if you're playing like team sports and you want to increase your intensity, the harder you work, the more you need to prioritize your recovery. And if I have another tip, it is sleep is the number one best recovery tool you have. Good quality sleep cannot be beaten. If you were to get any other recovery method, that be foam rollers, ice baths, like pool running, any sort of recovery tool, if you were to stack all of those up upon one another, it won't equate to the benefits you'll get with a good night's sleep. And so prioritize staying in your bed like an extra 20, 30 minutes, then rather than get up and do some recovery exercises. Like people get up half an hour early just to do their stretching and foam rolling. I'd highly recommend staying in bed if you can afford it and have that availability.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say before we mentioned the sleep so the viewers probably think that stretching has been a form of recovery for them in the past. So what other modalities and methods can they look at in order to recover? Because their recovery method in the past might have been stretching. So you mentioned sleep, pool recoveries. Did you want to touch on a few more just to give them a
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, sleep and probably nutrition. If you've got a real poor diet, you want to increase that as well. Hydration, you want to make sure you're well hydrated. But anything else like modalities wise, there is some really good benefits with like hydrotherapy and some hot cold contrast sort of stuff. The elites usually go for that, but a recreational runner wouldn't necessarily want to do that or care about the couple of % difference that it does have. If you do have a hard workout and you want to recover as best you can, blood circulation is quite good, but there's the myth that say massage and stretching increases blood flow, but it just doesn't. So walking around gets the heart pumping, doing some low intensity cross training. If you want to go on the bike, if you want to go on a treadmill or elliptical trainer, it gets your heart pumping. And what the heart does when it pumps is circulates the blood around the body. And that's a pretty good, well-designed method to enhance recovery because it just moves lactate around, just circulates all the bad things and gets all the good things around, gets oxygen circulating. So an active recovery is probably the best. If you go for a run and you want to cool down and you want to help your recovery, go for a walk for a couple of minutes, wait for your heart to settle back down, heart rate to settle back down, then you can stop. On a day where you're feeling particularly sore, you want to increase your recovery. Yes, we have a good night's sleep, we have good nutrition, but just if you really want to stay moving at a really low intensity, then that could be a good thing as well.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thanks for your input, Brodie. Really appreciate it, and all the value that you've given. So thanks.
You're very welcome, Jack. Yeah, had fun.
Yeah, no, it's good. And yeah, I'm sure we'll chat again soon and bump into each other again. So thanks once again, and we'll talk to you again.
You're welcome.
Thanks, mate.